So as a part of Season 1 in Vanguard Zombies, we have some brand new radios that tell us more about the story in Durand Vang, which we began to learn back in November when the game released. I've done a couple of videos on the first set of radios already, so if you do want to check them out, I will link them down in the description. But in this new bunch, at least the ones I want to show you today, we start to learn more about the origins of our artifacts, these Dark Ether entities, Korifex and the rest, what their plans are, and some potential leads as to where we could be going to for future maps within Vanguard Zombies. So in these first few radios, Gabriel Kraft, who we know is the demonologist who helped the SS to find these artifacts, he is talking to our crew where he explains more about the origins of our Dark Ether gods and their involvement in not only our world, but in their world, the Dark Ether.
Gabriel Kraft to Special Forces. By now you know the Dark Ether entities dwelling within you have visited our world before. Those who could perceive them have mistaken them for ghosts, deities, even angels. My own description of them as demons owes more to my academic background than to any belief they are infernal in origin. But we all see the world through our own lens. One can hardly blame a Viking for seeing Nauticus as a frost giant, or the ancient Greeks for thinking Invicta was the war god Ares. My point is that our own biases color how we see them. You hear demon and you think evil. The truth is much more nuanced. These are immortal beings from another universe, as capable of benevolence as they are of doing harm. In short, they do not share our sense of right and wrong. So never forget, these are not demons in some biblical sense of the word. They are your partners, and their hatred of Korifex assures that our goals are aligned. This is Kraft. I want to talk about Dark Ether runes, those little symbols you see all around you. I first saw them on loose pages from the Tome of Rituals that I tracked down for the Wahrheit. Then we found them inscribed at all the sites where we found the Dark Ether artifacts. I could see they fit no known human alphabet, but some of my colleagues attributed them to the ancient Aryans. Their reasons were obvious. Von List answers to Reichsführer SS Heinrich Himmler, whose belief in German superiority is the core of the Nazis' poisonous ideology. Himmler wanted the Wahrheit to find evidence the Aryan race invented the hallmarks of civilization, including written language. But kissing Himmler's backside would not change the facts. These runes were not Aryan. They were, however, used in mystical rites, as far back as Egypt's 4th dynasty, and as recently as the 1920s. Belekar has since explained to me that they are the basis for Dark Ether rune magic. She is endeavoring to teach me their use, but I fear I have been a poor pupil. Some runes are associated with specific demons, like Korifex or Saraxis. Others, well, I suppose that remains to be seen. Kraft here. I have been thinking about something that happened when the artifacts awakened, and Von List bonded with Korifex. One of the first things he did was to gather all the pages from the Tome of Rituals that led us to the Scepter of Korifex, and lock them away in his office. I stayed out of his way. Frankly, I was terrified. The man was already dangerous, but now there was a light in those pale blue eyes that, well, you get the idea. But in hiding the origins of the scepter, Von List raised some troubling questions. Was there some vulnerability mentioned in those pages? Some threat to his plans? I was not on the expedition that recovered the scepter. All I know is it was found in Egypt's eastern desert, far from the great cities of antiquity. I heard there was a temple to Osiris there, long forgotten and not mentioned in ancient records. I suspect those pages may provide a breakthrough for our little resistance movement. There must be some reason Von List hid them. Just something to keep in mind as we search for a way to stop the Wahrheit before the worst can come to pass.
So Kraft starts talking about our Dark Ether entities by telling us they've been around a lot longer than we have. They haven't only just discovered humanity, in fact, the two, them and humans, have been involved with each other for thousands of years. They've visited our world before, although not in their normal forms, I guess you could say, but instead they've been perceived as ghosts, angels, demons, terms that are familiar to us. Back when the Vikings were prominent, they saw Nauticus as a frost giant. The ancient Greeks thought Invicta was the war god Ares. The point is, since they discovered our world, over time they've been described as different things. And right now, in the 1940s, we are describing them as demons, but before, there were cultures that would call them gods. Kraft then starts talking about the Dark Ether runes. He tells us that he first learned about them on pages from the Tomb of Rituals, and the SS attributed these to the ancient Aryans, wanting to believe that it was the Aryan race that invented the hallmarks of civilization. But of course, that wasn't true. The runes weren't Aryan, but they could be dated as far back as Egypt's 4th dynasty, and some of the runes were associated to some of the demons like Korifex, Syraxis, and the others, and even some demons that we don't know of yet. But anyway, Kraft just then goes on to talk about how after Von List found Kortifex's scepter in Egypt, specifically it was found in Egypt's eastern desert, far from the cities of antiquity, where there was also a temple to Osiris there, but for some reason Kraft didn't join this expedition. This is just what he heard. He is suspicious as to why Von List wants to hide the true origins of Kortifex's scepter. Maybe it is the weak point of his plan.
Oberfuhrer von List, to all die Wahrheit personnel operating in Merville, France, in Paris, and in the swamp known to locals as Shinonuma. First, your service is exemplary. The dimensional weak spot at the windmill site is already receiving vital support from the Dark Ether. The archaeological dig at Shinonuma is yielding important insights about the entities aiding the enemy, and preparations atop the Hotel Royal will ensure that all of Paris will soon experience a very different sort of nightlife. Be advised that another area of operations is underway. You may hear radio traffic from our unit in the eastern desert of Egypt. Theirs is a mission vital to protecting our most valuable ally, Herr Kortifex. Requests from this task force get top priority. So far, Kraft's little band of guerrillas have not targeted that operation, and I intend to keep it that way. Continue with your duties, my loyal soldiers. Soon the whole world will be at our feet.
So in this radio, Von List is sending out a message to all Die Wahrheit personnel, to everyone operating in Paris, the swamps of Shinonuma, and another area of operation that is underway in the eastern Egyptian desert. However, he interestingly says that the unit operating in Egypt, it is them that are most vital to the mission. Any requests from the task force there are to get top priority. And he also says Kraft's little band of guerrillas, being us, have so far not targeted the Egyptian operation. Obviously we've targeted the Shinonuma one because that's where one of the areas in Duranfang is. We've also targeted their Paris operation, but as far as the Egyptian one goes, that at the moment isn't an area we are able to travel to in Duranfang. And Von List says he intends to keep it that way. He doesn't want to allow Kraft's little band of guerrillas to discover that they're operating there and get in the way. So just like the previous radio, there is something unique about Egypt that Von List and Kortifex are trying to keep secret. They're trying their best to hide what they're doing there, to make sure that no one knows specifically where in Egypt they are. All Kraft knows is it's somewhere on the eastern desert. Von List is making sure that we don't get there and mess things up. And then in these final two radios I want to show you, these are conversations between our Dark Ether entities where they're talking about multiple different topics, which include their involvement with humanity over the centuries.
Syraxis likes to claim she discovered your world, but there were many of us who took an interest. She saw you merely as new toys. Kortifex, I have never fully fathomed, but I assume he saw new ordered Nauticus to study you for conquest. Nauticus ordered me to learn your ways of war. And Bellica, curiosity is her lifeblood. We each had our favorite mortals to visit. For me, the Greeks. For Korifex, the Egyptians. We were seen as patron spirits, angels, demons, gods. Syraxis did have the idea to make artifacts that could bond us to mortals, but it took Bellica's cunning to actually make it work. Even then, we each had to craft our own. We tried to make them fit the cultures we wanted to visit. None of us got it quite right. I was probably closest with my sword, but swords I understand. Korifex? Korifex just didn't care. 2 pyramids on a stick. How long did that take him? We cast our artifacts through the veil. Our friends picked them up. And suddenly we were truly with them. We had such adventures in those days. But those are tales for another time. If only we had realized sooner that in creating the artifacts, we had made a rod for our own backs. General Nauticus, once known as the Conqueror, now forced to rub shoulders with a lowly grunt like me. Invictor, I have nothing against grunts. I was always well liked by my soldiers. Oh, General, you most certainly were not respected. Yes, but liked. Fair point. You, they liked. The Destroyer, always in the thick of the fight. Me, they followed. By the thousands, yet fighting as one. Because with me in command, they knew they would win. The Norsemen over here sensed this about me. They looked up to me. Revered me, in fact. Father of the Frost Giants. That is what they called me. Mighty warriors, the Norse. You would have liked them. Perhaps. The way one is fond of a warhound. But yes, I have enjoyed the company of human soldiers in the past. The Greeks in particular. I helped them lay siege to a city called Troy. Bonded with one of their warriors named Achilles. He used to call me Ares. The lad was a decent enough warrior to begin with. But after I was through with him, he was a legend. Do you see an Achilles in our current cohort? Because I am not so sure. They will do, Nauticus. They will have to.
So again, Invictor tells us that over time, each of the entities have had their favourite mortals to visit. For him, it was the Greeks. For Korifex, his favourite were the Egyptians. And it was Syraxis that had the idea to make artifacts that could bond them to the mortals. And so that's exactly what they did. They crafted artifacts to try and fit them into the cultures that they wanted to visit. However, none of them got it quite right. Korifex didn't care. His artifact was just 2 pyramids on a stick, but that does make a little bit of sense because obviously the ancient Egyptians were his favourite. But anyway, they made the artifacts, sent them through the veil to our world, and when we, on the other side, picked them up, they became bonded to us. And when that happened, the entities decided to help whoever they were bonded to in war. Nauticus helped the Norse. To them, he then became known as Father of the Frost Giants. Invicta helped the ancient Greeks. He helped them lay the siege to the city of Troy. And to them, he then became known as Ares. And obviously the other entities had their own stories as well, we just don't hear them. But as far as Korifex goes, his is, just like the rest of his involvement with Egypt, a mystery. Right now, Von List has a team there doing something, but what that is, we don't know. Unlike the other locations he's been working at, Shinonuma, Paris, he's making sure especially that Kraft doesn't find out not only where in Egypt they are specifically, but also what they're doing. There is something going on there that is important to his and Korifex's plan. And it's also suspicious considering that this was Korifex's chosen location thousands of years ago, when he chose to bond with the mortal people. Which leads me to think then, since all of these other locations that Von List mentions, Shinonuma, the windmill in France, Hotel Royale in Paris above the catacombs, Kraft and his team have gone to all of these locations, but the one we haven't, the one that Von List wants to hide the most, is Egypt. Could it be that whatever's going on there is going to be the key to stopping all of this and taking down Korifex? Which makes me think there's a high chance that we are going to go there, whether it be a full map or a region in Fang, but I think we will be getting a map there sometime in the future. So there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and as always, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.